everybody. So I was looking at a particular item from Norway, this bird-shaped brooch, and I was really interested in it. I was like, hey, maybe I should make a video about that. And I discovered some things. It's actually much more complicated than I thought it would be. I was just going to kind of quickly run through and be like, look at this neat thing that I found. And it's a lot more important, and it's kind of a historical find and a link to a lot of other finds. And so, of course, I made it much more complicated for myself. So it's found in Gressli, Norway. It's found in 1878 in a potato field. They had moved some stones. Underneath it was this bird-shaped brooch and over 2,000 coins. I think one of the largest coin finds from the era in Norway. It means we can kind of date it pretty reliably. So it had to be sometime after the 1090s. So they believe it circa 1100 AD. And you can see here the potato field. We know the exact spot where we actually found it. It's kind of important to the town. The town itself, very small, this quaint little, still even a farming community along a river. This is the little monument they built at that site. You can see this is actually the brooch on the tip of the monument there. And they've got a little path and some historical markers showing the actual spot. They've even got this little marker kind of explaining what they found. You can see they got coins and a picture of the brooch itself again. So the brooch is cast silver and it's gilded, which is why it's such a clear gold color. Style-wise, it's Urnes-style, which is this kind of late Viking age and even post-Viking age. Big looping figures, a little bit thinner, more delicate. You can see the rune stones are in kind of a similar style. At least you'll see elements like the eyeballs that are really teardrop shaped, curls at the end of the lines, the tentacles or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. So the object itself, I'm assuming it's cast. I don't really know that there's any other way to get this particular shape. And then gilded. And there's a particular process for the gilding, which I'll kind of explain in a little bit. This is the back of the brooch. You can see it's completely flat, definitely not as cleaned up. You can see there's little nicks and damage. A lot of those might be original to the casting. Some of them might be from cleaning up later. Like there's some scratches and such on there that I would probably guess were from actually cleaning the brooch up, 1878 or whenever they found this and started working on it. They did not have such methods that we have today for cleaning up artifacts. There's some damage, and I actually don't know whether it's damage done pre or post find, and I don't know whether or not it's original to the casting. You can see on the right, there's kind of a chomp taken out of it, like a bite. On the lower left, it looks like what might be a missing piece, and in the top, it looks like it probably used to connect there, or it should have connected. You can see when you have a clean break, usually you could take those two pieces, especially with metal, and you could kind of just put them back together again. And so at the top there, you can see it's almost a little rounded, which makes me think that it had broken and then still been in use for a while. And I find all those kind of wear patterns interesting. Like on the left, this is one of its little talons. There's some, looks like gilding rubbed off on it. And that's indicative of when you have a piece that has been rubbed up against, say, clothing or skin for a long period of time. And some other kind of interesting things. There's a couple of methods of casting, and one of them that was used in the Viking Age was you would get a copy by taking a piece of clay, you'd put a piece of fabric on top of it, and then you'd press your original into it, and then remove it, and the piece of cloth served to really keep it separated, the original piece or the carved piece from the mold. And then that way you can kind of cleanly separate the two. But it actually leaves these little fabric marks, these kind of hash marks. And I wonder if that's indicative of that they had some of those hash marks kind of left from the weave of the cloth. There can also be marks from grinding, filing and stuff. They had a lot of the same tools where we do now. But I'll note that they gilded on top of it. And if you gilded on top of those marks, you would still be able to see it most likely using the method that they used for gilding. And you couldn't really grind it down after gilding because you wouldn't want to remove the gilding itself. And you can see little marks where I'm assuming the original was carved. They would have made a positive carving, something like wax or clay. They could even do wood or something like that. But my assumption for this is wax. And it actually looks a lot like the tool marks that I get when I carve wax. You can see in these recesses, there's little kind of zigzaggy marks that almost look like chips are taken out of it. And I get that exact kind of mark when I'm using a little rounded chisel to get in those areas. And it's really hard to smooth afterwards. You don't have sandpaper or something that can fit in there, and they didn't have the wide variety of tools that we have. They didn't have a Dremel, and you don't want to press really hard in. You want to be careful. You don't want to carve too much out because it's difficult to kind of repair it back to its original state. And you can see those marks, and they're kind of regularly patterned, regularly spaced. You can really see it in this one where that channel in the middle there has almost like rib shapes, and that's the high spots left over from when you take chips out. So these are clay molds. These are all from Viking Age Sweden. So the one on top is a pendant, and you can actually see one thing they cast from it. Clay is a very common resource, and so you're not going to run out of clay, and it's a lot easier to get than doing something like carving a soapstone mold. On the right, those are molds for belt mounts, so individual little belt mounts, and on the bottom, that would have been a turtle brooch. On the left is a page from a book called On Diverse Arts, circa 1100 AD, right around the time these would have been put in the ground. Talks about how to actually gild an object, which it's kind of crazy that they even had the ability to do it. This was with mercury gilding, but basically they make an amalgam out of mercury and gold, cream of tartar, and salt. They'd put that on the actual cast object, and then they'd heat it, and that would gild it. So I want to talk about some other items that are very similar. This is probably the closest I found. And it's actually, I would say, insanely close while also not being the same thing. It's not the same object. It's not from the same casting. You'll see it's so close that if someone made one, they must have been looking at the other or something, because it's so similar, but different at the same time. Like, it has a lot of the same features. Look around the neck where there's that looping thing. And it loops in the same way. It has some of the same little holes in it. It has the same kind of wings. The tail fans out in the same way. You can tell that it's not just even influence. Like, someone must have had something similar to be able to make this. This is the one from Denmark. You can see it actually has a clasp on it. Those little bits that are sticking out. That's where you would have a piece of wire that went from one to the other. The wire would make it so it could stay on like a political pin. Compared to the one from Norway, again, that one had no such clasp on it. And I really don't know how it was used. However, we'll look at some others. It might have been hung from something like a cord rather than having a clasp and being worn like a brooch. So there's some more kind of bird brooches from Denmark. These ones obviously much cruder and simplistic, but I feel like they're still in the same family. You can look at it and go, okay, I can see how that's related. These ones are from Lapland in Sweden. The shape is kind of eerily similar. It's that you can see the big breast of the bird. You can see the tail kind of trying to fan out, obviously much cruder. But you could actually, there's a piece of string, which is original to the piece, I believe, when I was reading the archaeological material. Original to the piece, and kind of says to me that this was hung on something. I don't really know what the cultural significance of this is, and why there are these shapes of brooches everywhere, but they're there. Here's a picture I took of one of those actually in the museum in Sweden. And even in Finland, again, same type of brooches, and it's like undeniable that these are related in some way, shape, or form. Left one definitely looks like a pigeon or something. The right one, I don't know. It's fascinating, and they've still got that deep-breasted bird look. They've still got the fan tail, the feet on the bottom. They've got the one even has a little crest on it. Notice the kind of hanging holes that could be used to be hung from something. Bird-wise, I think it's either a pheasant or a peacock. Pheasant or a peacock. Little dangly bits at the top kind of match. And they've got talons, wonderful tail. I don't really know the overall cultural significance of this. They didn't have peacocks in Norway or Sweden or Denmark, just like they didn't have lions, and even though those ended up on their coats of arms. To me, it seems like this is some sort of celebrated animal in some way, shape, or form. I don't know also that peacocks are anywhere in Norse mythology, though at this time they would have been a Christian nation, really. Maybe that had something to do with it, absorbing some of that Christian information, basically, about foreign animals. I'm hoping to do a bit of a series of items from the Viking Age, their importance, how they would have been made, where they were found, all of those things. I like connecting with the objects and the time period. I find it really fun, and I hope you do too. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If I said something stupid, please feel free to share that with me as well. So thank you very much.